Hey guys, welcome back. Bolt Spider here, and today we're going to be looking at Dogmatika Nekroz. Now, in the How to Build series, I build a base ground deck that everyone can use for what they would like for the certain deck that they want. So far, we've covered Shaddoll Invoked and Ursa Arctic. Today is going to be Dogmatika Nekroz, as I stated, and I have been playing this deck ever since Dogmatika has released. So I know a basic groundwork of what to put in to the deck. So when we think of Dogmatika Nekroz, what do we majority think? People usually put more Dogmatika than you need. So let's get the Dogmatikas up. Now for the lineup that you usually want 1 to 2 Fleur-de-Lis. You want the 1 Maximus because this card is very good sending things like Herald of the Arclight, Cyframe Lord Omega, most of your extra deck cards to the graveyard, and then the triple Ecclesia because she is one of the best cards in the deck. And then we're gonna have the 1 Titaniclad, the Ash Dragon, as it's very good. Then we have these two right here, Dogmatika Albaz Knight and Dogmatikaz. These two are very essential for a certain build of the deck, as you can activate Dogmatikaz, sending a Titaniclad to summon out your Albaz Knight or Cypherlane Lord Omega. With the addition of Nadir's Servant, you can send a Herald of the Arclight to search out Albaz Knight, and then you get a search off the Herald to get the Dogmatikaz. On top of that, you set up a graveyard just for a Maximus play if you draw into Maximus. So I think when Albaz Knight comes out, you want to fully flush out the Dogmatika Maximus. And then for the rest, we have the double Punishment, because Punishment is a great counter card. Now for the Nekroz. Nekroz has always stayed the same for the lineup for the past 3 years, which is the 1 Shrit, the 1 Trish, 1 or 2 Trish, it really depends, the 1 Valkyrus. Sadly, Gungnir has gone to the wayside, the triple Brionac. You could even run 2 if you want, but triple, in my opinion, is the better of the 2. The double Unicorn, even though it's at 3, you could run 3 or 2, and the double Colossalus. Now for the mirrors, it has never changed, being 2, 2, and 2. So overall, this is what your core looks like. And then you cannot forget your preparation of rites, as it's an additional copy of any of your Nekroz monsters. And on top of that, reinforcements of the army. Because this card searches out your Shrit and your Colossalus. You can even run a second Shrit if you want to, but overall, 1 is the more comfortable because you are more into having to control what your opponent does. Now, I'm going to keep the 9 slots left in the main deck there, as we do have a few cards that we need to put in our extra deck. We have Totally Awesome, great for recursion from the graveyard of your Nekroz monsters. Herald of the Arclight, because it searches your cards. Cyframe Lord Omega, another great card as well. Now let's look at the limited monsters real quick, as I know that there's another one we can definitely utilize. Being, actually no, there's not. Luckily, I do have a deck in front of me. So far, we're pretty well-rounded on what we need. Other things we can run are things like a small Shaddoll engine. Now, we have Neo Shaddoll Aerial. We also can run Shaddoll Beast. The Shaddoll monsters that you want to run is the 1 Construct, the 1 Winda, and the 1 Apicalone, along with the 1 Shaddoll Fusion just in case. Also, we're going to need Shaddoll Schism, as this is the main fusion spell that we want, as we can activate it on our opponent's turn. Then we can send to the graveyard one monster your opponent controls with the same attribute of that fusion monster, and we banish the fusion materials listed from the field or graveyard. Now, how are we going to get those cards to the field or graveyard? Construct is the best one. We send App Cologne to grab a Shaddoll monster, or we can do a lot of other things here and there. So mostly it's going to be those two right there, being Beast and Aerial, because no matter what you do, it's going to have a lot of impact. Because that's the main, like, Shaddoll package that we have. You're sending a Shaddoll to the graveyard to search out your Schism, and then you have those cards to back up on. Now, for things like honorable hand traps we can run. Ghost Spell is one of the more popular ones we can definitely run. Then we also have things like Ash Blossom, because universally it is a good card. And what else can we run to put in that one space? Well, overall, there's not a lot of things that we can run, but if we just take a look at the limited section for a little bit, there's going to be a card that pops out quite very well for us, and that's going to be Harpy's Feather Duster, because we do have to deal with back row. So that's one of the good cards to put into the deck as well. Now, other cards to put into the extra deck. Now, we do run Kaleidoscope, and this allows us to utilize the extra deck to summon out multiple Nekroz monsters at ease. So, I love putting in a level 12 Synchro just in case, because summoning out a Valkyrus and a Unicorn at once, or a Trish and a Colossalus at once, is pretty good. What other cards can we also put in? That's the very, very good question, because there's so much utility in this deck, and one of the cards that you definitely need are things like Natis. Now, just in case, if your opponent has a Maximus themselves, you want to run a Nova and an Infinity. Actually, a Makaba, not an Infinity. And we have one slot left. And overall, the deck is very versatile on what you want, rather than what the meta can call for. So one of the other cards that I do run, I usually max out on the Herald or a Titanclad, or maybe an App Cologne, because overall it's going to be good. Now, I would run Annoyatilis, but we don't have... We're in a meta where spell and trap cards don't really revive that much anymore, so Annoyatilis, I want to run it, but it's not that feasible right now. So we're just going to put the second App Cologne, because we have multiple targets we can add. Now, one of the things that you do have to remember when you do use your Schism, you can banish the App Cologne that you send and one of your Dogmatika monsters during your opponent's turn first to summon out a construct after they've done some plays. Then you go into Aerial and banish 3 from their graveyard, so that's one thing to remember. So let's do a test stand real quick to see how it is. So overall, this is going second hand because we open up the Aerial with the Shaddoll Fusion, but we could still do a little plays. So we're just going to activate our Nadir, and you can see the amount of targets that we can add. So we're just going to send the App Cologne, add the Ecclesia. Effect of the App Cologne is going to be fine, so we can get the Shaddoll Schism. And this is where it's a hard decision to discard, so we have to send the Aerial. So we send the Rook, normal summon Ecclesia, affect the Ecclesia to get a search, to grab the Maximus, because you can either grab Maximus or Punishment, but I would rather have another negate just in case before doing anything else. Now, if we do another test stand, we open up with this. Open up a Brio, we open up everything but the Unicorn. So we just grabbed the Unicorn. We could have grabbed the Colossalus if we wanted to. And it's just, we need to get as much resource as we can. So we have this on the field, Arclight triggers, that's absolutely fine to grab something maybe like another Unicorn, to cycle back, to add a Brio for next turn, and that's as much as we can do. Now, how do we stop this overabundant of ritual spells in our hand? We just cut the mirror and the cycle. So we could easily slot in these two cards, which actually do more. Or, like I said, we can slot in something like a Shuret and the second Fleur-de-Lis the Knighted. And then when we test stand, this is a good hand, because we just go send the App Cologne, get the Ecclesia, and then we trigger the App Cologne, getting the Rook from hand, and then Rook is going to discard. Again, it's a hard decision. We have to discard the Trish, because we can get that back later. As overall, it is a slow deck. But if we open up stuff like this, it's interesting, definitely to say. But if you don't want to run the double Shuret, double Fleur-de-Lis, you could put in the two ritual monsters, and let's see if we could draw a Nadir Servant real quick. If we can. So this is actually one of the better hands that you can grab. So you activate your Disciple, and since we run that new target, we can send the Herald to grab this. Then we get the effect of Herald of the Arc Light, and this is going to search the Dogmatika. Now, we could also get the Brio search to get the Unicorn. Activate Dogmatika, because we can send monsters from the deck to the graveyard. You can either send Omega or Titaniclad. Summon out this. Activate the Kaleidoscope, sending out the Herald. Summon out the Unicorn, effect of the Unicorn, to grab something like a Trishula for target prevention. Then we just set the 1. During the end phase, we use Titaniclad, and we get the Fleur-de-Lis. So we do have a Dogmatika on the field, so we can activate Fleur-de-Lis at any moment, and if we activate Rook, it doesn't really do anything. So now with this, we just poke and poke and poke. So if there's other ways that you can get to certain cards, like example this, you should be fine. Because now we're just going to deck thin, and I'm just showing off a few example hands of what the deck can do. So we can go dumping the Herald, summon out the Unicorn, effect of the Herald, and this is where we're going to get Dogmatika. Normal summon the Ecclesia, activate her effect, grabbing Albaz Knight. Then we're just going to Dogmatika the Albaz Knight out by sending the Titaniclad. And then this should be in defense. And we could set 2 for a bluff. End phase, we get the Titan to grab the Fleur-de-Lis. So we end on 2 bluffs, 3 monsters on the field. And we draw into Nadir. And Nadir just sends the App Cologne, grabbing the Ecclesia, using an App Cologne, grabbing Ariel, discarding the Ariel, banishing 3 from their graveyard. And we could just normal summon the Ecclesia, grab the Maximus. Maximus can banish the Titanclad because we're not going to need it. And this is where Maximus is going to send 2. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this little overview on what Dogmatika Nekroz is and what it's going to be like. And hopefully it's just a base build for you. Leave suggestions down in the comment below what you want to see next on how to deck build, as I already have a few decks in mind. But anyways, I've been Bolt Spider. See you guys in the next video, and goodbye.